I still remember the weight of that little velvet box in my hand. The feel of the ribbon, soft and tight, like it was holding together more than just a gift. It was holding on a hope. I'd been planning this moment all week. Took a detour on the way home from work. Stood at that counter like some wide-eyed fool while the jeweler explained the fire trapped inside opals. "They're alive," he said, "like they carry stories." That made me think of her, Vanessa. She always said opals were her favorite. Back when we were still us. Back when Sunday mornings smelled like vanilla candles and we'd spend hours curled up on the couch debating whether or not pancakes should ever be savory. So there I was, standing in the doorway of our little kitchen in Charlotte, North Carolina, holding out that velvet box like it meant something. "Hey," I said softly, offering it to her. "Thought of you when I saw these." Vanessa didn't even turn around. She stood with one hip leaned into the doorframe, arms folded, staring out the window like it was more interesting than me. "I don't want gifts, Ethan." My hand hovered midair. "You okay?" She turned then, just enough to let me see her face. Expression flat, eyes hard. "I want a divorce." That landed like a slap, but colder. "Wait, what?" I said, "I want out." She repeated, her voice low, surgical. "I'm tired. I deserve better than this." "Then you." I didn't move. Just blinked, the box still between us. "Better?" I asked, slow and careful. "We have a life here. A good one, I thought. What happened?" She laughed, but it wasn't warm. It was hollow. "You happened. You and your good enough, everything. This house. Your job. Your routine. I feel like I'm aging in dog years just being here." I lowered the box. "You could have said something." "I did," she snapped. "You just never listened." "I listened to everything. You said you loved the garden. You said you wanted to paint the spare room blue. You said, I also said I felt alone," she cut in. "But you only hear what you want to hear." I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't angry. She wasn't crying. She was done. And me? I wanted to scream. Throw something. Fall apart. But instead, I closed the box gently and slipped it into my pocket. "I won't stop you," I said quietly. "If this is what you've decided." That made her pause. Just for a second. She wanted a reaction, rage, pleading, anything to prove I still cared enough to break. But I wouldn't give her that. I stood there, hands steady, voice calm. The kitchen clock ticked like a metronome, marking the end of something I hadn't realized was dying. She scoffed, stepped past me, and grabbed her purse. "You're really going to stand there and pretend this doesn't hurt?" "It hurts," I said. "Just not the way you hoped it would." She hesitated again, then turned and walked out the door. The silence that followed was massive. And suddenly, the life I thought we shared, Sunday pancakes, movie nights, her singing off-key in the shower, it all felt like some kind of elaborate memory I'd clung to, blind to the growing cracks. My name's Ethan. I was a husband. I was her safe choice. Her placeholder. But not anymore. And if you think that was the end of the story, you'd be dead wrong. The courthouse smelled like dust and artificial lemon, like someone tried to polish over something rotten. It was one of those overcast mornings, the kind where the sky feels just heavy enough to press down on your chest. I sat on a wooden bench outside Courtroom B, suit freshly pressed, hands folded in my lap like I was at a funeral. Because in a way I was. Vanessa arrived 15 minutes late. That was deliberate. I knew her too well. She liked entrances. She liked being seen. And today, she looked like a woman walking into a victory parade. Hair straight and gleaming like it had its own PR agent. Lipstick bold. Her heels made that sharp, confident click across the tile floor, echoing off the marble like they had something to prove. She spotted me, and her mouth curled into this half-smile like she was already winning. "Nice tie," she said as she approached. "You still shopping at those mall clearance racks?" I didn't blink. "Morning, Vanessa." She kept walking, didn't even pause. "Let's get this over with. I've got a lunch reservation at Juniper and Ivy." And that was it. No hesitation, no looking back. Just a woman who'd already convinced herself she was trading up. Inside the courtroom, everything moved quickly. No kids. No assets to fight over. No drama beyond the unspoken one sitting between us. The judge went through the motions, forms, signatures, confirming details. Vanessa smiled the whole time. Not wide, not fake, just enough to suggest she was enjoying this. I didn't smile, didn't twitch. I kept my face still, breathing slow, like I'd trained for this moment. Because I had. I watched her sign the final document with a little flourish at the end of her name. She slid the pen across the table like she was done with a business deal. Then, as we were walking out of the courtroom, she leaned toward me, voice syrupy with condescension. I can't believe I ever married you. I stopped, turned to her. Funny, I said. I was about to say the same. For the first time since that kitchen night, she froze. Just slightly, like someone had yanked a thread loose in her perfectly stitched composure. Her smirk flickered. Just a flicker, but it was there. Then she tossed her hair and kept walking, heels clacking too fast now. Like she needed to exit before I saw too much. But I already had. She wanted satisfaction, closure, drama, maybe even regret from me. What she got was silence. I stepped outside into the cold gray morning. Let the door shut behind me without so much as a glance back. There wasn't anger in me. Not anymore. Just this strange clarity. This woman, this person I thought was my forever, was just a phase. A lesson. She'd written me off as boring, as predictable. Maybe she was right. But predictability doesn't lie. Predictability doesn't abandon. Predictability shows up. And I did. Every single day. You want to know what really shook her? That I didn't fight. That I didn't beg. That I didn't become the broken man she needed to justify what she did. Instead, I became something far worse in her eyes. Untouchable. That was the real power. Not rage. Not spite. Stillness. And as I walked through the courthouse lot, the clouds above me breaking just enough for a hint of light to pierce through, I realized something. I wasn't walking away from a marriage. I was walking towards something. I just didn't know what yet. But I knew this. It wouldn't look anything like her. That night, I found myself in a dim booth at Rick's Taproom off Freedom Drive, the kind of place that smells like hot wings and unspoken regrets. Low lights, sports on flat screens, the background hum of half-hearted cheers. It wasn't exactly where I thought I'd be the evening after my marriage officially flatlined. But Marcus had insisted. He showed up 10 minutes before me, already working through a basket of fries like the world wasn't on fire. Same Marcus I knew from college, loud, fast-talking, always dressed like he might end up on stage. "Ethan, my guy," he said, rising to pull me into one of those bone-rattling bro hugs. "Man, you look like you've seen things." I chuckled, sitting down across from him. "Let's just say I've aged 10 years since breakfast." He waved the waitress over with a grin. "2 IPAs, and throw in some mozzarella sticks. My man's in recovery." Once the drinks landed and the bar noise settled into the background, Marcus leaned forward, eyes suddenly more serious. "So, you really signed those papers?" I nodded, staring at the condensation on my glass. This morning, she was already dressed like she was headed to a photo shoot. Designer heels, smug grin, the whole farewell tour. He whistled low. Damn, she didn't waste time turning the page, huh? She already skipped ahead a few chapters. We sat in silence for a minute. I took a long sip of beer, letting it settle. Marcus tapped his fingers against the glass. "You know what I remember about you back in college?" I glanced up. "That I always showed up late to study group?" "No," he smirked. "That you always followed through. On everything. You weren't flashy. You weren't loud. But you were solid. Consistent. The dude people leaned on." I let that sit for a second. "Yeah, well, maybe that's why I got left behind." Marcus shook his head. "No, man. That's exactly why she'll regret it." He leaned in again, voice lower now. "Look, I've seen guys fall apart after this kind of hit. They drown in it. Whiskey, dating apps, bad decisions. But you? You don't need to spiral. You need to build." "Build what?" I asked. He grinned. "Whatever version of you she didn't see coming." I raised an eyebrow. "You giving TED Talks now?" "Actually, yeah. Kinda." He laughed. "Motivational speaking. Small gigs. High schools. Corporate retreats. The whole turn your failure into fire thing." That a real quote? It is now. We both laughed, but there was something under his tone, something I hadn't felt in weeks. "Direction. You still hitting the gym?" he asked. "Not since my metabolism gave me a false sense of security." "Well, it's time to change that. Come with me tomorrow. 6 a.m. We'll lift, we'll sweat, we'll scream at each other through squats. It'll be great." I groaned. 6. Pain before peace, my friend. I stared into my glass, then slowly nodded. "All right. What the hell? Let's do it." Marcus grinned like I'd just agreed to climb Everest. "That's what I'm talking about. Channel all that heartbreak, all that quiet rage. Turn it into something that scares her if she ever sees you again." "I'm not doing it for her." He raised his glass. "Even better. We clinked glasses. And in that small, sticky booth in a bar lit by neon beer signs, something shifted. Not loud, not dramatic, but real. A decision. To stop standing still. They say reinvention starts slow, like water boiling, one quiet bubble at a time. For me, it began with sweat and pain, and Marcus screaming in my ear at 6:17 every morning. Come on, Ethan. You want to look like her regret or her rebound? I chose regret. We hit the gym like it owed us money. Deadlifts, pull-ups, squats that made my legs feel like wet spaghetti. The first week nearly killed me. The second, I was just sore. By week 3, I was addicted. See that? Marcus said, clapping a hand on my back one morning as I finished my third set of incline press. That's a man who doesn't cry in the shower anymore. Speak for yourself, I muttered, wincing as I racked the bar. He laughed. You're changing, brother. Keep going. And I did. Next came my job. I'd been stuck in a beige cubicle at a local real estate office for 7 years, surrounded by the smell of reheated tuna and the constant hum of the copier. My boss, Glenn, thought charisma was forwarding emails with a thanks. One Tuesday afternoon, I caught my reflection in the smudged office window, shirt too tight at the neck, face slack, eyes tired. I looked like wallpaper. Forgettable. I went back to my desk, opened a new tab, and typed, Digital Marketing Certificate, Beginner. By the weekend, I was enrolled in an online course. 2 months in, I knew enough to make my own site. Marcus helped me brainstorm names, half of them ridiculous. Click Rush, he said one night over burritos. Or Gadget Junkie. No. Oh, Data Mouth. Sounds techie and weird. I shook my head, laughing. You're banned from naming anything ever again. We settled on Circuit Nook. Clean, simple, catchy. I launched it quietly one Friday morning with 3 gadgets and 0 expectations. By the following Thursday, I had 20 sales, then 50. By month 4, I was pulling in enough to hand Glenn my resignation letter. He stared at me like I'd just thrown a grenade on the printer. Wait, you're quitting? For an online store? Selling phone tripods? No, I said, smiling as I buttoned my jacket. I'm building something. That's different. And I left, feeling weightless. My days filled up fast after that. Mornings at the gym, afternoons tweaking ad copy, evenings packing orders. I learned SEO, email funnels, product sourcing, and how to shoot my own promo videos without sounding like a used car salesman. And every week, something changed. My shoulders squared out. My posture got better. My voice, deeper, clearer, firmer. Even the mirror started nodding back at me like, okay, there you are. I bought new clothes, not to impress, but because I no longer recognized the guy in discount khakis and stiff loafers. Marcus noticed it first. We were walking out of the gym one morning, sweat-soaked and starving, when he stopped mid-step. You know what's crazy, he said. You walk like a guy who's never been broken. I blinked. You calling me cocky? I'm saying you walk like a man who owns his story now. That's different. I didn't say anything, just nodded. Because he was right. I wasn't healed. Not completely. But I was moving. And there's power in that. Real power. The rooftop was buzzing with low music, designer suits, and flutes of champagne that cost more than my first cell phone bill. The Charlotte skyline glittered around us like we were floating above the world. Marcus had outdone himself. This startup is gonna blow up, he said, pulling me through the crowd toward the bar. We've got investors from Austin, 2 podcast interviews next week, and that dude from TikTok, the finance guy with the hair, he's already posted about us. I grinned, adjusting the collar of my black button down. You trying to sell me equity or just make sure I don't leave early? Both, he laughed. Now go mingle. People need to see the face behind Circuit Nook. You're the comeback king tonight, remember? I wandered to the edge of the patio, letting the breeze cool the back of my neck. It was surreal. 3 months ago, I was packing phone grips in my living room. Now people were asking me how I'd scaled so fast. It felt earned. Then I heard a voice behind me. Ethan. I turned, eyebrows raised. She stood there in a red dress, fitted, elegant, a little too formal for this crowd. Her hair was shorter now, darker, curled at the ends like she was trying to recapture something. Do we know each other? I asked, genuinely puzzled. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Ethan, don't you recognize me? And that's when it hit. Vanessa. Her name tasted strange in my mouth, like saying something you hadn't thought about in a long time. She gave a small shrug, eyes scanning me from head to toe. You look different. I offered a polite smile. You too. A pause stretched between us. Long enough to feel it. Long enough to hear the music fade into background static. I didn't know you knew Marcus, she said, glancing around. We go way back, I replied evenly. College. He helped me get back on my feet. Gym. Business. Whole 9 yards. Her brows lifted slightly. Business. I nodded toward the glass doors behind us. Circuit Nook. It's mine. Online gadgets. Smart home stuff. Desk gear. Launched it a few months ago. We're growing fast. She blinked. You started a company? Yeah. I sipped my drink, watching her carefully. Left real estate. Wasn't for me. Another silence. This one heavier. She smiled again, but her mouth trembled at the edges. You always talked about wanting something different. I guess you found it. I did. Her eyes dropped to her glass. That's good. Really good. I didn't ask how she was. Didn't press for details. But I could see it in the lines on her face, the way her shoulders hunched slightly, like gravity was winning more often than not. She cleared her throat. I moved back to Charlotte last month. Things didn't work out the way I thought. I just nodded. That happens. She looked up sharply, like she wanted more. An opening. A bridge. Ethan. But Marcus appeared beside me, grinning. There you are, man. People keep asking about you. I told them you were too busy being mysterious. He glanced at Vanessa. Oh, sorry. Didn't mean to interrupt. I turned slightly, not taking my eyes off her. No, you're good. She gave a quick, strained smile. It was nice seeing you, Ethan. You too, Vanessa. And just like that, she walked off into the crowd, heels clicking too quickly, like she needed distance before her face gave her away. Marcus watched her go. Was that? Yeah. He gave a low whistle. She didn't expect this version of you. No, I said quietly, eyes still on the crowd. She expected the man she left. And that man, he was gone. The invitation came through text. Vanessa. Hey, if you're not too busy, maybe you could stop by tomorrow? Would be nice to catch up without the noise. I stared at the screen for a while. No emojis. No fluff. Just a fragile sentence wearing its best polite face. I didn't know her anything. But curiosity's a quiet itch. And sometimes closure comes in strange forms. So the next afternoon, I drove downtown, past the polished suburbs, through cracked intersections and fading murals. Her new place was in one of those aging red brick complexes, small balconies, paint peeling around the corners, mailboxes dented from time. I parked, stepped out, and looked up at the building. It was surprising. Vanessa always swore she'd never live anywhere that didn't have valet, granite countertops, and natural light on 3 sides. But here we were. She buzzed me in before I could knock. 3rd floor. Her voice came through the speaker, softer than I remembered. The hallway was dim, smelled like takeout and old carpet. I climbed the stairs slowly, passing cracked picture frames and muffled music bleeding from behind closed doors. Her apartment was at the end. When she opened the door, I barely recognized her. No red dress. No perfect curls. Just a loose sweater, leggings, and hair in a lazy bun. She looked tired. Not just in the eyes, but in the way she moved. Hey, she said, stepping aside. Come in. I walked into a space that was half decorated and half forgotten. A half-assembled bookshelf leaned against the wall. The couch looked like it came from a garage sale. You settling in okay? I asked. She nodded, brushing invisible lint off her sleeve. Trying to. She motioned toward the kitchen. Wine. I'm good. She poured herself a glass anyway, then sat on the edge of the couch, tucking her legs beneath her like she used to do back when our apartment still smelled like cinnamon and she'd wear my old college hoodie. I took the armchair across from her. She smiled faintly. You look calm, like someone who finally slept 8 hours. I chuckled. Close. 6.5. We sat in a pause. Not quite comfortable. Not hostile. Just full of things we didn't have the language for anymore. You remember that beach trip we took in year 2? She asked, swirling the wine. The one where we got caught in the storm and had to sleep in the car? I nodded. You kept singing over the thunder. Because I was scared, she said quietly. But I never told you that. I knew. She looked up sharply. You did. Of course. You always sing when you're trying not to cry. That silenced her. She stared at her glass for a moment, then leaned forward, her hand brushing my arm. I miss that version of us sometimes, she whispered. I didn't move. Her fingers lingered. Soft. Familiar. But I didn't reach back. Instead, I leaned away, gently but firmly. Vanessa, I didn't come here to go backward. She blinked, hand pulling back like it had touched something hot. Oh, I didn't mean, you did, I said, not unkindly. And I get it. This isn't easy. But whatever we were, it's done. Not out of spite. Just truth. She looked down, her voice barely audible. Right? I stood slowly. Take care of yourself, I said. Really? And I meant it. She didn't follow me to the door. Didn't ask me to stay. She just sat there, alone on that worn-out couch, wine untouched, eyes blank. When the door closed behind me, the hallway somehow felt brighter. Like I'd walked out of a chapter one hadn't realized was still open. It was mid-morning, and I was deep into an ad metrics report when I heard the commotion outside my glass-walled office. Muffled voices. Then heels. Fast, sharp, angry ones. Marcus poked his head through the door first. You've got a situation, he whispered, eyebrows raised. And then, without waiting for a reply, she barged in. Vanessa, hair flat-ironed into perfection, eyes flaring like matches, lips painted blood red like she came dressed for a war no one invited her to. My team, 3 junior marketers and 1 intern, went dead silent behind their desks. You could feel it in the air. Whatever this was, it wasn't business. Vanessa, I said evenly, closing my laptop. You're not supposed to be here. She didn't even blink. Just stood in the middle of the office like she owned it, shoulders back, voice loud enough to draw every eye in the room. You left me with nothing, Ethan. Emotionally, financially, legally. I took a slow breath. That's not true, and you know it. I gave you years, she snapped. And you gave me a pile of memories I didn't ask for. I stood, not angrily, just enough to meet her on even ground. You walked out, Vanessa. You asked for a divorce. You told me I was holding you back. She took a step forward, eyes shining now, but not with tears. With something else. Something colder. I'm filing for alimony, she said, dropping the words like a grenade. Emotional distress. Lingering financial hardship. You've clearly rebounded. Your business, this office, your new wardrobe. I cut her off gently. What exactly are you hoping to get from this? A legal correction, she hissed. I was your wife. You owe me. Marcus shifted behind her, arms crossed, mouth tight. The whole room was frozen. Everyone pretending to type, eyes darting like they couldn't look away from the wreck on the freeway. I don't owe you anything except the truth, I said. And the truth is, I honored our marriage. You didn't. Her mouth opened, maybe to shout, maybe to twist it, but I beat her to it. You want to take it to court? I asked calmly. Fine. I'll win. And I won't play dirty, Vanessa. You already did that part for both of us. She went quiet. Just for a second. Like the gears in her head jammed. Then she tried again. Don't pretend you're innocent. You changed. You became someone I didn't recognize. No, I said, voice low. I became the man I always should have been. You just never stuck around to meet him. The words landed hard. I saw it in her face, the twitch at her jaw, the sudden stillness in her shoulders. She looked around, suddenly aware of the eyes on her, the quiet judgment hanging in the air like dust in sunlight. Her voice dropped. This isn't over. I nodded. It is for me. And with that, I turned away, sat back down, and opened my laptop. She stood there for another breath, waiting, maybe, for someone to stop her, for me to chase her, for anything but stillness. But no one moved. Eventually, her heels clicked against the floor as she turned and stormed out, the office door swinging closed behind her like the punctuation mark to a sentence I didn't need to finish. Marcus walked in a moment later, let out a long whistle. Well, he muttered, that was Olympic-level delusion. I looked up. You good? I'm good. Are you? I smiled. I'm better than I've ever been. It started with a ping, then another, and another. By the time Marcus stormed into my office holding his phone like it was radioactive, I already knew something was off. You seen this? He asked, jaw tight. I grabbed my phone and pulled up the tag notifications. There it was, Vanessa's post, sitting like a loaded trap in the middle of my feed. A grainy photo. Her leg, angled carefully in half shadow. A fading bruise just visible on her thigh. No direct accusations. Just a caption that read, some wounds don't just fade on the surface. 3 hashtags. Hashtag Hewison Think, hashtag Truth Hurts, hashtag Some Hurts Last. The comments were already piling up. Friends from her old circles. Strangers. A few vague threats. No names mentioned, but enough subtext to spark a fire. And I was the fuel. I stared at the screen, pulse thudding in my ears. Marcus said, low and serious. You need to handle this. Fast. I didn't reply, just grabbed my jacket. I picked the cafe on purpose. Public, quiet, with big windows and regulars who minded their own business. She showed up 10 minutes late wearing sunglasses and a silk scarf like she was auditioning for a courtroom drama. Thank you for meeting me, she said, settling into the chair across from me, cool as ever. I kept my voice calm. What are you doing, Vanessa? She tilted her head, innocent. Is that how we're starting this? I saw your post. You knew exactly how it would look. She took a slow sip of her coffee. It's my story. I'm allowed to express my pain. Pain. I repeated. Vanessa, you know I never laid a hand on you. Ever. Her lips tightened slightly, then curled into a smile. Funny how quick you are to defend yourself. I leaned forward, voice quiet but steady. If you're hurting, I get that. If you're embarrassed by how things turned out, I get that too. But you can't lie to the world because you didn't like how you came out looking. She didn't blink. So now I'm lying? You're implying abuse, I said. You know exactly what those words mean. And you're saying them with just enough ambiguity to protect yourself legally, but not ethically. She looked down at her cup. Do you remember the night I moved out? How cold you were. How I cried in the car for an hour before driving away. That's not abuse, Vanessa, I said flatly. That's consequence. Her eyes flared. You think you're clean in all this? I know I am, I said. And I'm done sitting quietly while you try to rewrite the story. She folded her arms, voice icy. Fine. If I take it down, you agree to alimony. There it was. The real motive. I exhaled slowly. So that's what this is about. Not healing. Not truth. Just a negotiation. It's justice, she whispered. No, Vanessa. It's blackmail. She pushed back from the table. You think the internet cares about evidence? They'll believe me. All I need to do is keep planting seeds. And that's the difference between us, I said, standing up. You plant lies and hope they grow. I build truths and watch them stand. For the first time, her face cracked. Just a flicker. If this goes legal, I said calmly, I'll come with proof. Witnesses. Timestamps. Records. And you'll be the one answering for this. She didn't speak. I nodded toward the door. Think real hard about your next move. And I walked out, letting the cold air hit me like a wake-up call. Whatever line she'd been dancing near, she'd just stepped over it. And I wasn't going to let her keep walking. I was halfway through my second coffee, reviewing ad performance metrics, when I heard the knock. It wasn't the casual kind, no friendly rhythm, no soft tap-tap. It was firm, heavy, a statement. Marcus opened the door and froze. Behind him stood two officers, uniformed, badges glinting under the overhead lights, faces carved from stone. One of them spoke with practiced clarity. Ethan Carr. I stood slowly. That's me. I'm Officer Langley. This is Officer Ruiz. We need you to come with us for questioning regarding a domestic allegation. The office froze. All the casual hum of keyboards and coffee machines vanished. I didn't speak right away. I just looked between them, heart suddenly pounding. Am I being arrested? Not at this time, Officer Langley said. We just need to ask a few questions down at the station. It's voluntary for now. Marcus stepped beside me in a heartbeat. You're not going anywhere without counsel. I nodded, jaw tight. I'll cooperate. I just need to make a call. They gave me 2 minutes. I stepped into the conference room, dialed Marcus's lawyer, Cal Porter. Sharp, quiet. The kind of guy who could dismantle a lie with 3 questions and no sweat. Trouble, Cal said on the first ring. Vanessa filed something. Domestic. The officers are here. I'll meet you there in 20. I hung up, took a breath, and walked out with the officers without looking back. Marcus just gave me a tight nod, eyes hard. Outside, the world looked normal. Birds chirped. Cars passed. Somewhere nearby, someone laughed. And I was being escorted to a station like a criminal. The interrogation room was smaller than I expected. Neutral walls. 1 camera. 1 window with blinds half drawn. I sat across from a detective who introduced herself as Jensen. She had kind eyes, but a notebook open in front of her like it was a courtroom already. Mr. Carr, she said, we received a statement from a Ms. Vanessa Carr, your ex-wife, alleging a pattern of verbal and emotional mistreatment. She also submitted photographs. She submitted bruises? I asked calmly. She nodded. Yes. I folded my hands. Taken after our marriage. Edited with contrast filters. No police reports. No witness. Just pixels. Detective Jensen tilted her head slightly. And your relationship with her currently? Non-existent, I said. Until recently, when she attempted to manipulate me into paying alimony. I refused. She responded with social media posts and now, apparently, this. She jotted a note. Any recent contact between the two of you? I met her at a public cafe yesterday. She made her intentions clear. She said, and I quote, "If I take it down, you agree to alimony." I refused. She threatened to keep posting. Do you have proof? She left the moment I stood my ground. But I can give you names. Marcus Dunn, my business partner. He knows everything. My office team saw her storm in last week demanding money. I have nothing to hide. Detective Jensen glanced toward the corner of the room, where a younger officer stood silently observing. And during the time of your marriage? I never laid a hand on her. Never raised my voice. The closest we got to a fight was her telling me I bored her and walking out. Silence. Jensen scribbled something, then looked up. She claims emotional distress. Long-term impact. I nodded. Then she'll need to prove it. Because I have the receipts, timestamps, and 10 witnesses who've watched her try to claw her way back into my life one manipulation at a time. There was a pause. The young officer, Ruiz, shifted, then leaned in to whisper something to her. She nodded. We'll be following up with your lawyer. You're not being charged at this time. You're free to go, Mr. Carr. The weight in my chest didn't lift immediately. I stood slow, nodded, and thanked her. Cal met me in the hallway. You did well, he said. But this won't be her last move. I know. He looked at me, eyes narrowed. She's not after money anymore. I nodded. No. She's after damage. And if she thought I'd break. She hadn't been paying attention. The courtroom wasn't like TV. No dramatic music. No pounding gavels. Just the hum of a malfunctioning air vent and the shuffle of papers echoing too loud in the silence. I sat next to Cal, suit pressed, tie straight. Calm on the outside. On the inside. Like standing at the edge of a cliff, watching a storm roll in. Vanessa sat across the aisle, flanked by her attorney, some fast-talking, overconfident guy named Whitaker. She wore a pale blue blouse, her hair in a tight bun, makeup soft like she was trying to disappear into sympathy. But her eyes, they were sharp. Watching me. Measuring. The judge, a woman named Keller, mid-60s with silver hair and no tolerance for nonsense, called us to order. Whitaker stood first. His voice oozed performance. Your Honor, my client has suffered emotional damage that far outlasted the end of her marriage. She was silenced, neglected, gaslit. Cal interrupted, rising smoothly. Your Honor, we'll be addressing each of these allegations with dated evidence and cross-examination. Judge Keller nodded. Proceed. Vanessa took the stand first. She spoke softly, delicately, used words like isolated, erased, helpless. Her eyes shimmered when she mentioned the bruises. Her voice trembled when she said, I thought I was going crazy. For a moment, even I felt a flicker of something. Not guilt, just the weight of how far she was willing to bend the truth to suit the story she wanted. Then Cal stood, and line by line, he dismantled it. Ms. Carr, he began, voice measured. On this date, you claim Mr. Carr was verbally abusive. Yet your text messages from that same day read, Thanks again for the flowers. You always know how to make me smile. Would you like to explain that? She faltered. I didn't want to upset him. Cal didn't flinch. You also claimed he isolated you. Yet records show you took 4 trips during your marriage. 1 with friends, 2 with your sister, and 1 solo. All booked independently. How do you define isolation in that context? Her mouth opened, then closed. And then came the witnesses. Marcus, my assistant, even the building concierge, each one steady, factual, unraveling her image of victimhood with timelines and observations that didn't match her narrative. By the time Cal finished, even Whitaker looked like he was ready to pack it in. Judge Keller flipped through the file in front of her, then looked up. Ms. Carr, this court finds no legal basis for alimony. Furthermore, due to the nature of your conduct, we are issuing a no-contact order effective immediately. You are not to approach, call, or correspond with Mr. Carr in any form. Vanessa blinked. Once. Twice. She wasn't crying. But something in her face shifted, like the last thread of the story she'd spun had just snapped. I didn't gloat. I didn't smile. I just breathed. For the first time in months, fully. It had been 9 quiet months. No calls. No emails. No unexpected knocks on the door. My life had finally settled into something solid. Circuit Nook was running smoother than ever. I'd hired 2 part-time assistants, launched a second product line, and even started mentoring a few local entrepreneurs who reminded me of, well, me. Before. There were mornings now when I'd wake up, stretch, and forget what pain used to feel like. That was the best part, forgetting. Then, on a breezy Saturday afternoon, Marcus and I met up for lunch at a street market near South End. He had his usual armful of energy and a lemonade in each hand. "Before I forget," he said, sliding one across the table, "you remember Vanessa's cousin? The one who worked at that boutique downtown?" I gave a slow nod. "Tamara." "Yeah. She was at my talk last week. Came up after, kinda awkward. Wanted to tell me something off the record." I raised an eyebrow. "Okay," he leaned in. "Vanessa had a baby. Couple months back." The words landed softly, but they echoed. I blinked. "You serious?" "Yeah. Living with her mom now. Real quiet about it. No baby shower, no announcements. And, here's the kicker. She apparently tried to suggest you were the father." I stared at him. "What?" "She implied it, Marcus. To Tamara. No name, just hints. Said the timeline was messy. You know how she operates. Never direct. Always just enough for people to fill in the blanks." I leaned back, exhaling through my nose. "That's wild," I said. He shrugged. "Tamara didn't buy it. No one with eyes would. But I figured you should know." I looked out at the crowd. Kids playing near the fountain. A food truck playing soft jazz. And for a moment, I just felt light. Not angry. Not vindicated. Just free. I turned back to Marcus, grinning. Let her spin whatever story she needs. The truth doesn't shout. It just waits. He chuckled. "That's poetic, man." "No," I said, smiling as I sipped my lemonade. "That's peace." And that was the end of my story. But let me ask you something. When Vanessa tried to use a child to regain control over a past, she ruined herself. Did she do the right thing? Or was it just another manipulation? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I really want to hear what you think. And hey, if this story made you feel anything, hit that like button and subscribe for more.